So, what are you being for Halloween? Fuck, do I ever miss being a child? It was so goddamn simple being a child. You didn't have to worry about literally anything other than whatever it was you wanted to do that day. I just farted. The only worries you had were what your friends thought about you. That's it. Hey, Jenny doesn't like me. Oh well. Let's go play some ball and video games and eat food that I didn't even have to make and steal some money out of my mom's purse and go break some glass behind the school and then go home and sleep and wake up and do whatever, you know? It was fun being a child. And then, like, fuck off, Slipper. And then, like, you get in a situation, you don't even have to deal with the situation. You get your parents to deal with the situation for you. I mean, obviously, in certain circumstances, but for the most part, if something goes down where you need to communicate with an adult, you get your parents to communicate with that adult. And you just sit back and be like, ha! Fuck you, bitch. I got parents. But I don't know, everyone's situation different. There's kids that grow up that have to completely raise themselves and raise their siblings because their parents are they're either their parents are just too busy, they don't have time for the children, or the parents are just like pieces of junk and don't pay attention to the children, or they don't have parents, or there's plenty of situations where children have to raise themselves, and that really prepares them for the real world. But then there's children, and the majority of children grow up completely dependent on their parents and guardians and teachers, where they just cruise through childhood with no fears and no problems, and then no guidance on what the real world's going to be like, and then all of a sudden graduation happens and they're like, well, shit, now what? Like, what the fuck do I do now? And then it's just absolutely frightening. And that was me. That was me. You see? I was not prepared for this world. And a lot of people weren't. But I'm almost 25 now, and I'm starting to understand it's not as bad as I thought it was. I got phlegm in my throat. And so this idea of being scared, frightened of the real world, is kind of the center point idea, the main kind of ideology of what my book is based on. I'm writing, for those who don't know, I'm writing a fictional novel. Is every novel fictional? I don't know. I should know. If you're going to write a book and you don't even know what kind of book, like, fuck off. I had this idea in grade 11 for a book, and I started writing it then, and I've been writing it ever since, kind of on and off. But over the past month or so, I've really been dedicating a lot of time to writing this book. And, well, I don't really want to just throw the idea out there of what the plot is, because it's something I hold dear to me. It's one of the things that I can't go without. If I go somewhere, I gotta bring my laptop so I can write in my book. I gotta work on the book, and that's something I need to get out there, because it's probably one of my most creative ideas I've ever had, and I've stuck with it this long that it's not worth giving up on. And so I'll just give a brief synopsis. I've been trying to find the best way to really describe this so that it doesn't come across as, like sometimes I describe the book, but I describe it in a way where people just say, why did you describe? There's an easier way to describe it. I describe it the hard way. So I've been trying to come up with an easier way to describe it, because as soon as you say, fuck off, stop hitting the microphone stand. As soon as you say you're working on a book, the first thing people say, so that's why I don't tell anyone, but when I do tell them, the first thing that they say is, what is it about? Oh, you want to know what it's about? I haven't fucking, come up with something new to say. I'm so sick. And obviously it's understandable that people are going to say that, but there's people I work with who literally say the same shit every day. Literally the same shit, the same stories, the same phrases, the same little, everything is the same questions. And it drives me fucking insane. Especially when you have to work with the same people every day for like 3 weeks straight in a place that you don't want to be. It's aggravating. You wake up in the morning, you go down to the bus stop, and they're like, oh, good morning. How was your sleep? Did you sleep well? It's like, fuck. You said that yesterday. You said that the day before. Why do you keep asking me? And then, at lunchtime, it's like they commentate on what the fuck you're eating. You pull out a sandwich and like, oh, good old turkey on rye. It's like, shut the fuck up, man. You don't have to describe my food every time I eat the shit. Like, they have to look at what you're eating. You pull something out of the bag, they look over. And then they describe it. It's like, fuck off. Just let me eat it. And I always predict it. I'm like it gets to a point where I don't even want to pull the food out to eat it, because I know as soon as I do, all their fucking stupid eyes are going to look straight at it, and then they're going to say shit about it. And they do it to everyone. It's like someone pulls out a fucking muffin and they're like, oh, chocolate chip muffin. Shut up! Like, do you have to say what it is? It's so it drives me insane. Anyway. So the book is about, I don't even like saying that. The book is about, Obviously, you're telling me what the book's about. You don't have to say the book is about. Imagine a baby, okay? And the baby is born in a hospital room. It's a pleasant experience. Usually everyone involved is, at least when the baby's, once the baby comes out, it's a happy moment, right? Except for the baby. The baby's kind of usually not happy. Crying. But the baby sees the happiness around the room, okay? It doesn't, it can't recognize it or process it or even communicate what is going on other than crying. But imagine, we'll say like moments later, the baby loses all of its senses. Cannot see, taste, touch, hear, smell. Ugh. What happens? Okay? You got this baby, you got this basically lifeless baby that's breathing. Can't do anything. But it still has the brain, okay? It still has a brain. And the brain still functions normally. The brain can still take what the baby has experienced in that little moment of life, and it can expand on whatever it took in that moment, and it can create a world strictly within the mind, and that is where the baby will reside. Being that it has no senses to operate in the real world, it has to create and manipulate a world in its mind. And, life goes on, and the world that the baby creates throughout its life, however long it doesn't have his or her senses, it turns into a world strictly based on its own ideologies. Whatever it feels is right and necessary, that is what the world will be based upon. And that is basically the utopia everyone wants, right? Because everyone, if there were such an idea as a utopia, everyone would have to have their own specific utopia because everyone's different. And so this baby that has no senses is going to have its own utopia as it gets older, not even realizing that there is a real world. And then eventually, let's say those senses come back and the baby, gains access to the real world. Then what? It's going to instantly realize how scary and unpredictable the real world is, and it's going to be so vastly different than this dream. We'll call it a dream world. And so that baby has to operate and learn to cope with the scary details of the real world, and it has to make a choice. Or at least it feels it has to make a choice, being, is it going to stay in the dream world, if it even can, or is it going to learn to cooperate with the real world? And it's, an internal struggle that no one can relate to. And that's, that's as far as I want to go. That is basically the idea of this story I'm writing. And it didn't even start off that way. It just started, it was an idea I had in class. I still remember what class it was. It was one of those classes where it was like they called it distance learning. So your teacher was somewhere else in a different fucking city. But you just you taught yourself. You had the book, the online book, whatever that was. The fucking textbook. You had that on the computer, and you'd read through that and answer the questions and do your own tests. But you'd be in a classroom with other students. There was one teacher there just to supervise everyone, but the teacher didn't teach. You taught yourself in the classroom. And so basically you could fuck around all you wanted, if you wanted, and then just, try to do the tests without even reading the textbook, which is what I would do. And I would barely pass. But while I was in that class, there was only other like 2 other students doing this distance learning. It was a small town, still in the small town. Anyway, I was just sitting there. I was probably doodling in my binder, and then this idea came. I just couldn't stop thinking about, what the fuck? Why has no one experimented with senses and losing every single sense in the body? And what would that be like? And can you still survive in your mind? And at the time, it was such an explosive idea to me. I just instantly was like, okay, fuck this schoolwork. I'm writing a bunch of notes down about this. And then as soon as the school day was over, I went home and I immediately started writing the book. And by the end of that year, I finished the first draft of that book, and then, or no, maybe not. No, I definitely didn't finish because then I went to Vancouver Film School, right out of high school, and I started the book in grade 11, so it was somewhere around, like, after I got back from Vancouver Film School that I finished the first draft. I don't know. I just kept developing it, and I'm still developing it. It's been fucking years, and I'm basically on the third draft now. But I'm constantly changing it. I'm constantly manipulating it in ways that it makes more sense to the human condition. And I'm understanding life a bit more as I get older. Yeah. So, you know, stuff's happening. It's not like I was constantly writing the book over those years, though. Like there would be months I'd go without writing because I'd be focusing on either music because I was doing that for a little bit, and then it'd be like I'd jump back into making little skits for YouTube, and then I started the podcast, and then I've been doing that. And the podcast is really one of my main focuses now because I'm really getting into a good groove. And I love podcasts. It's basically the only thing I listen to and watch. I don't watch TV, I don't watch movies. I watch YouTube. And specifically on YouTube, I basically just watch podcasts. And if I don't have access to YouTube and I'm driving long distance, which is way more often than not, I just listen to podcasts. And then I walk, and then I listen to podcasts. Just I don't go a day without at least listening to like 5 podcasts. It's just I'm constantly podcasting, whether I'm making it or listening to it. And then, I will watch the odd TV show here and there, but it's very rare. And then I keep up on my YouTube stuff as well. How long have we been going? Janice? Why don't you shut up? You shouldn't be looking. Yeah, I know you got me